He's editor-in-chief of Breitbart News and a New York Times best-selling author. And on this podcast, he brings deep research, prescient analysis, and world-class guests. He's Alex Marlow, and this is The Alex Marlow Show.
All right, it's a bittersweet day on The Alex Marlow Show. I hope all of you are well, but it was Joe Biden's last public address. One of my favorite characters riding off into the sunset, or more likely, riding off into the Amazon. It feels like that is where he's headed. Oh, we don't have our Amazon drop today. We normally have it. It's gone. It's gone. Our Amazon drop is gone. We got a lot of Joe Biden. I'll get to that. We got a lot of news as well. I'll give you confirmation updates. Those of you who missed yesterday's show, I will plug the interview I did with Justin Hightower, who is managing director of Priority Gold. I told you guys, I'm not doing this like normal shows. I'm not bringing people on the show who are not highly informed and informative. Priority Gold is very important to the show because they're our first sponsor, but they're also really informative people who I've done business with for years. So I do recommend that. I listened to it myself just this morning. It was really good. So I highly recommend it. But let's get into the news. Ton going on. We are days away from Donald John Trump becoming the 47th president. Joe Biden will no longer be president. After 50 years of public service, he is finally signing off. He gave a speech last night, which was, I would say it was pretty much vintage Joe Biden. It had some moments that that were much more positive, much more believable than some of his Democrat counterparts, and you see why he was able to ascend to the heights that he did politically, if you're politically neutral. But there's tons of lying, tons of demagoguery, and a lot of passive aggression, a lot of things that were actually quite mean and dishonest. And they were framed up as he was the one who was the moral one and the clear-headed one, which has never been the case with Joe. He's a guy of a very weak moral character. I documented this in great detail in Breaking Biden. He's not simply just wrong on the issues. He's a bad person. And he has fooled a lot of people for a long time, and he got all the way to the top. So definitely worth studying. I'm very happy I did the book because I think he's an important historical figure that we witnessed the rise of, someone who is on his face pretty mediocre. But let's hear what he did. It's so important to do this. Let's go through it. Joe Biden.
My fellow Americans, I'm speaking to you tonight from the Oval Office. Before I begin, let me speak to important news from earlier today. After 8 months of nonstop negotiation, by my administration, a ceasefire and a hostage deal has been reached by Israel and Hamas, the elements of which I laid out in great detail in May of this year. This plan was developed and negotiated by my team and will be largely implemented by the incoming administration. That's why I told my team to keep the incoming administration fully informed, because that's how it should be, working together as Americans.
Yeah, well, we know this is Trump's deal, and Netanyahu would never have taken this deal because not a perfect deal, as I talked about in great detail, top of yesterday's show, but it's a good deal. And Netanyahu would not have taken a good deal with Joe Biden there because he wouldn't have felt like that was good enough. Netanyahu took the good deal, which will bring peace to the region, because he's under the impression Donald Trump will help him allow him to keep pressure on the enemies of Israel. None of this mess would have happened if Joe Biden had lost to Donald Trump last time around, because the October the 7th, as again, I've written essays about this at Breitbart, is 100% a product of Joe Biden's foreign policy weakness, because Hamas thought and Israel's allies thought they could take advantage of Israel's top ally in the world being weak. So that's the bottom line. Even Biden's own State Department has said that it was basically Trump who got this done. So, and they thank Trump. So it's, but Biden still tries to take credit. I don't blame him for it, though. I would have done the same thing if I was him, but he does not get credit. Here we go.
This will be my final address to you from the American people, from the Oval Office, from this desk as president. And I've been thinking a lot about who we are and maybe more importantly, who we should be. Long ago in New York Harbor, an iron worker installed beam after beam, day after day. He was joined by steel workers.
Okay, I'm pausing in here because this is actually probably the only good part of the speech, the part that I genuinely liked. So, but I will say that his "who we are" comment is just, I'm so over that, and I'm excited for that to go away. His talk of the soul of the country and his talk of who we are, and that's not who we are. And he's completely out of touch with normal Americans. He's been a politician for 50 years. He got elected to the Senate when he was the youngest senator, one of the youngest in history. Stayed in the Senate until he became vice president, and then had only a brief hiatus and then became president. So he was in elected life he's in his 80s now, from his late 20s. He is not in touch with normal Americans. He's convinced us that he is, but nothing about his record suggests that he understands the pain that normal Americans face. And he is not the arbiter of who we are. And I am very pleased that he will no longer be the representative of the country, because I don't think that he's our representative now. And so officially, it'll be great to move on from that. But let's hear, this is the best part of the speech. Let's hear it.
Stonemasons, engineers, they built not just a single structure, but a beacon of freedom. The very idea of America was so big, we felt the entire world needed to see. The Statue of Liberty, a gift from France after our Civil War. Like the very idea of America, it was built not by one person, but by many people, from every background and from around the world. Like America, the Statue of Liberty is not standing still. Her foot literally steps forward atop a broken chain of human bondage. She's on the march, and she literally moves. She was built to sway back and forth to withstand the fury of stormy weather, to stand the test of time because storms are always coming. She sways a few inches, but she never falls into the current below. An engineering marvel. The Statue of Liberty is also an enduring symbol of the soul of our nation, a soul shaped by forces that bring us together and by forces that pull us apart. And yet, through good times and tough times, we've withstood.
So he tried to honor his vision of the soul of the nation by weaponizing his Department of Justice to try to take out his political rival, maybe put him in jail, and make sure that his family got business deals, which we now have learned are still taking place. As I opined after my research into Breaking Biden, that I was 100% convinced that Hunter Biden still had equity shares of Chinese companies, especially one that's connected to a shipping conglomerate, probably worth 8 figures, and pretty clear that that's the case still. So that's how Biden honored the soul of our country. But I will say, that was beautiful. That was a beautiful history lesson. It really was. And how many people under 40 are fluent in that history? I bet 0. I was never taught that in school. And I went to good schools, and it was before the whole wokeness era took over. But I did not know all the details about Statue of Liberty, and it was nice to get that education. Very inspiring. So it is, of course, I wish it was a better messenger, but that was the lone good moment of the speech. Let's hear some that I didn't like as much.
Institutions that are rooted, they just might not reflect the timeless words, but they echo the words of the Declaration of Independence. We hold these truths to be self-evident. Rooted in the timeless words of the Constitution, we the people. Our system of separation of powers, checks and balances. It may not be perfect, but it's maintained our democracy for nearly 250 years, longer than any other nation in history that's ever tried such a bold experiment. In the past 4 years, our democracy has held strong, and every day I've kept my commitment to be president for all Americans.
Yeah, this is absolutely false. He was president for only left-wing Americans. He targeted his political opponents. He weaponized the FBI, the Department of Justice. All of this was targeted at people who disagreed with him politically in order to shut down speech. His predecessor, Hillary Clinton, and her era of Democrats denied the 2016 election. All these people are threats to democracy. All this anti-democratic, all of the efforts that they have gone to try to jail their political opponents is a war on democracy. Biden is forever associated with the lawfare era. He should be remembered in history for that. It was his brainchild. It started with him, with the lynching, high-tech lynching of Clarence Thomas and the borking of Bork. And it ended with him getting rejected largely because I think he was overly prosecutorial against Donald Trump and his Department of Justice. So he's not been a good steward of democracy. He's not honored our democracy, and our democracy is not stronger now than we got in office.
That's why my farewell address tonight, I want to warn the country of some things that give me great concern. This is a dangerous and that's a dangerous concentration of power.
Okay, so I dangerous concentration of power. Sometimes you feel like the dentures that just aren't setting right in his face, so he's got to try a different approach. I will say that he's about to warn us of stuff that he had 50 years to deal with and didn't. So just note that. That's what's coming next.
In the hands of a very few ultra-wealthy people. And the dangerous consequences if their abuse of power is left unchecked. Today, an oligarchy is taking shape in America of extreme wealth, power, and influence that literally threatens our entire democracy, our basic rights and freedoms, and a fair shot for everyone to get ahead. We see the consequences all across America, and we've seen it before, more than a century ago. But the American people stood up to the robber barons back then.
I really can't. I can barely understand. So he was talking about concentration of power. Did he say a century ago? Anyway, this was the worst moment of the speech because Joe Biden has presided over an oligarchy. There's an oligarchy running the country right now. It is a handful of people who removed him and then installed Kamala Harris. Those people are Nancy Pelosi, Barack Obama, and Laurene Powell Jobs. Those are the people who did that. So the Biden administration marked the era where America got taken over by the ultra wealthy. The Bloomberg had a story, American oligarchy decried by Biden gained $1.5 trillion during his term. Biden had a much stronger concentration of billionaires than Donald Trump. The vast majority of people who earn over $500,000 a year are represented by Democrats. 9 out of the 10 richest counties, according to reports. Trump won people who don't make a six-figure income. The list goes on and on. The tech oligarchs, Hollywood, increasingly Wall Street. All these people vote for Joe Biden and Kamala Harris more than they vote for Donald Trump. Now they're going to come around now because a lot of them care more about business and a lot of them are waking up to that wokeness is bad for the country. And they see the writings on the wall, the culture shifted. But during Biden's administration, this is where an oligarchy got formed, where the defense contractors were controlling our warfighting. The rich people were controlling it. When I was going to write Breaking Biden, I don't want to do this because maybe I'll do a book with this title. Do I want to say this? I'll say it. I want to be honest with all of you in the audience. So I originally pitched a concept about this, about how Biden was presiding over an oligarchy. And I had a great title. I thought American Oligarchy. That was going to be the title. That's what I pitched Simon & Schuster. And they said, hey, that's pretty good, but I'd rather read a book about Biden. And I thought, okay, Biden's good. I'll write about Biden. And no regrets. But I was going to warn about this exact thing, that the oligarchy's here and they're going to blame it on us. So all these tech guys kissing Trump's butt now doesn't mean that we're the oligarchs. Biden's the oligarch. He's the ultimate. He is the guy who allowed for the oligarchy to get formed. And our democracy is under attack from these people who try to buy our elections. You cannot say that we're in an oligarchy and then give the Medal of Freedom to George Soros, the most meddlesome person in all of American politics throughout the last several decades. So that's where we're at. When you have Laurene Powell Jobs, who I wrote about so much in Breaking the News, who didn't do anything, inherited money because she married Steve Jobs, and then used that money to buy The Atlantic, that has been a paper that has just been a relentless thorn in the side of American democracy since Trump's first administration. And she also has all of these fake news, viral things that are designed to go online and make things go viral. And then all these entities prop up her candidates like Kamala Harris, and then Kamala Harris gets anointed without getting a single vote. And you wonder, is Trump the oligarch, or is it the people who control every element of the Democrat media ecosystem? From the viral online blogs to the prestigious glossy magazines to the candidates themselves. They're owned by a handful of people. So very audacious comment by Biden and unacceptable in my view. So glad to see him go. Let's continue.
So much is at stake. Right now, the existential threat of climate change has never been clearer. Just look across the country, from California to North Carolina. That's why I signed the most significant climate and clean energy law ever in the history of the world, and the rest of the world is trying to model it now.
I don't ever want to hear about climate change again. I said this on the show when the fires broke out. If the people who claimed that climate change was a major threat really believed it, they would have cleared out all the brush. They would have made sure the reservoirs had water in it. They would have understood the physics of the fire hydrants. They wouldn't have cut the fire department budget. They would have pre-deployed the firefighters before the high wind events. They would have said climate change has put us with our back against the wall. So to act like we didn't have hurricanes before climate change is completely absurd. It was interesting. There was a period in Florida. I got to commit this to memory because I think about this all the time, and I haven't. But there's a window of like 14 years or something right after the climate hysteria started, where there wasn't a hurricane that made landfall in Florida. It was like 2001 to 2016 or something. I got to look it up. One of you look it up for me. So it was so they act like there's no real evidence that hurricanes have gotten worse. We're not in the hottest years. It seems to be getting warmer, but I mean, solar cycles are way more responsible for that. I don't want to make this a debate about whether or not there's climate change. I want to make it about the people who have been the ones who have said, we're going to stop it, don't do anything to stop it. What they do is they fund the green sector. And the green sector are the oligarchs who donate to Joe Biden. So it is, you think he believes this stuff? The bigger problem we have going is the Bidenflation because of all of his spending. All right, some more.
It's working, creating jobs and industries of the future. Now, we've proven we don't have to choose between protecting the environment and growing the economy. We're doing both. The powerful forces want to wield their unchecked influence to eliminate the steps we've taken to tackle the climate crisis, to serve their own interest for power and profit. We must not be bullied into sacrificing the future of our children and our grandchildren. We must keep pushing forward and push faster. There's no time to waste.
So my old colleague James Delingpole had this nailed. Green is the new red, so it's really communism or socialism. It's not climate. It's not environmentalism. It's I can guarantee you Donald Trump knows more about environmentalism and conservationism than Joe Biden does. I can guarantee it. Because when you got to build stuff and you have golf courses, you learn about those things. So it is about creating a green sector of windmills and solar farms that are just creating a new industry for woke lefties, lining the pockets of Democrats, and putting us on a path where they're going to take more control over our lives. That's what they're talking about. They want to have climate emergencies so that they can control us more. They're not really concerned about the quality of life issues that are going to arise from alleged climate change, or else they would have done something in LA.
You know, his farewell address, President Eisenhower spoke of the dangers of the military-industrial complex. He warned us then about, and I quote, the potential for the disastrous rise of misplaced power, end of quote. 6 decades later, I'm equally concerned about the potential rise of a tech-industrial complex.
Okay, so the first part is how dare he talk about the military-industrial complex? He put Lloyd Austin, who was on the board of Raytheon and in charge of our Pentagon. Tony Blinken's job, when he is not in the State Department, is to try to broker deals between giant corporations and the defense sector of our U.S. military. He's a consulting firm called West Exec, showed up in both of my books. That's his job. He finds money from the government and gets it to corporations to do defense. That is the military-industrial complex. And then we get into more foreign entanglements under their watch. He is the guy who drafted Liz Cheney, Joe Biden did, from the Republican Party to the Democrats. These guys love the military-industrial complex. So Donald Trump wants fewer foreign wars. He has no contacts. He has no connection to the defense industry. So he has, he has surrounded himself with a bunch of pacifists, people who hate these foreign wars. So it's a very strange segue from Biden. Just shows that, I don't know, maybe this isn't his best written speech. Let's see what he says about the tech industrial complex. All the people who've donated to Democrats for so long, censored conservatives for so long. Let's see what Biden thinks of them.
It could pose real dangers for our country as well. Americans are being buried under an avalanche of misinformation and disinformation, enabling the abuse of power. The free press is crumbling. Editors are disappearing. Social media is giving up on fact-checking. The truth is smothered by lies, told for power and for profit. We must hold the social platforms accountable to protect our children, our families, and our very democracy from the abuse of power.
Just contextualize how pathetic this is. This is a guy 50 years in public life. 8 years as vice president, 4 years as president. He was one of the most significant people in American jurisprudence in the last century by nature of his role in the Senate Judiciary Committee as the chair there, even though he barely survived law school. Guy came from nothing to get all this power. And this is his last address to the public. And he is upset that Mark Zuckerberg is changing the fact-checking patterns that they're going to do at Facebook. That's what he's on right now. It just shows you how badly we won if this is what he's talking about. It's not even that they're doing away with fact-checking. They're doing away with the left-wing liars who have been in charge of fact-checking to this point. That have been their sole purpose has been to censor conservatives and to not actually check for truth. To shut down thought, to shut down speech, to shut down people asking questions. All right, going on.
We must reform the tax code, not by giving the biggest tax cuts to billionaires, but by making them begin to pay their fair share. We need to get dark money. That's that hidden funding behind too many campaigns contributions. We need to get it out of our politics. We need to enact an 18-year time limit, time and term, for the strongest ethics and the strongest ethics reforms for our Supreme Court.
Yeah, so this is just to go through that laundry list. Pay your fair share in taxes is a penalty of the middle class, particularly the upper middle class, the people trying to traverse from class to class. The millionaires and billionaires, they always figure it out. They hire enough accountants. They figure out ways to pay a lower tax rate. And the paying their fair share stuff, this is just all the people in the upper but not super top income brackets who are paying 40, and where I live, sometimes 50% in taxes. If you include national tax, state tax, property tax, sales tax, pay over 50%. And that's not their fair share. So it's an absurdity. It's the half the country barely pays taxes at all. So, they pay sales tax places, but there's very limited income tax. A lot of them benefit from government handouts and programs. I've always hated this phraseology. It's just dishonest. So he says, pay your fair share. What was the next thing he did? Oh, yeah, dark money. So dark money right after he gave George Soros the Medal of Freedom, the ultimate dark money guy. Any dark money conservatives are doing is a direct response to Soros. I never understood the people who, when there's a fight in a schoolyard, when they don't care who started it, who started it is everything. The rules are what they are. And George Soros was taking advantage of them with his dark money campaigns. So the right said, okay, well, we'll do that too. So now we've got some entities that are funneling money to various conservatives and conservative groups that don't necessarily have a direct name tied to it. So there's not quite as much accountability as maybe we'd have in a perfect system. Sure. But we're catching up to 20 years of the Democrats beating us at this game. So why does he care about this now? Because the Democrats lost their advantage. The same reason why he wants term limits on the Supreme Court. He wants term limits on the Supreme Court because there are too many conservatives on the court. If the court was 9 liberals and they were all lifetime appointments for 30 years or 40 years coming up, then he wouldn't be calling for term limits. Every sentence is fundamentally dishonest. This is why people hate politicians, and Joe Biden is the consummate politician. All right, last one for today. Let's play it.
And in a democracy, there's another danger. To the concentration of power and wealth. It erodes a sense of unity and common purpose. It causes distrust and division. Participating in our democracy becomes exhausting and even disillusioning.
It is a republic. It needs to be said. So it's not a democracy.
Disillusioning. And people don't feel like they have a fair shot. We have to stay engaged in the process.
Okay, so they don't have a fair shot. Who's responsible, Joe? You've had the most power of any American for the last 50 years. Shouldn't you fix this? It's a quarter of the country's history. You've been in charge.
I know it's frustrating. A fair shot is what makes America America. Everyone's entitled to a fair shot. Not a guarantee, but just a fair shot.
It's a
An even
fair
playing
shot.
field.
Even playing
Going
field.
as far as your hard work.
Whoa, right. Guy got caught plagiarizing a bunch of things throughout his life. All right. Sad to see him go. Sad to see him go, but thanks for all the memories, Joe. And thanks for all the inspiration. You taught me so much about what it means to be a Democrat. So he will be missed. And I'm just praying that he'll live a long life, a fruitful life. And he will opine about all the horrible stuff Democrats are doing in a fearless way. So I'm hoping that will happen next. All right. Thanks, Joe Biden. Appreciate you. All right. Let's did you guys catch that millions of dollars worth of Hunter's art got burned in the Palisades fires? Because that's Hunter's stomping grounds. I think he lives in Venice, which is just south of where the fires were. And he famously stayed in Malibu, all those famous photos of Hunter in Malibu. So millions of dollars. Do you think the government's going to reimburse him? I bet he does. I bet the government tries to. If Biden won, you could bet it. So it's his bogus art, but not even good. All right, lots to do. I'm going to mow through some stuff pretty fast. Ron DeSanctimonious. He's announced Florida Attorney General Ashley Moody as the Senate replacement for Marco Rubio. I like Ashley Moody. Nothing wrong with her. She's been pretty steadfast in her in her support of pretty much all things hardcore and substantial. So we've only had to track her a couple of times in the past, but she did oppose Biden strongly on open border policies, vaccine mandates, towed the line on all the right stuff. So, I was rooting for Lara Trump, but this seems like a great pick. And DeSantis does a great job with this stuff. You guys know I did get an email about how I should stop complaining about Ron DeSantis. I'll read this from Timothy Kelly. We listen to my show every day. My landing page is Breitbart, has been since switching from Drudge, but you're taxing me with your constant referring to Ron DeSantis in a derogatory way. Ron DeSantis is America's best governor and has been since taking office. I also notice when talking about him, you always follow the derogatory name calling with something he's doing good. Yes, that's the pattern. That's right. That's exactly what I do. It seems you would recognize the pattern. You're constantly reminding us of unchristian behavior. You might want to rethink this a bit. I feel that you're doing this because he dared to run against Trump. Not true. That's false. Please recall that Donald Trump calls all of his enemies names, and most of the time takes it back when either he needs them or they rejoin his team after the defeat. That's true also. He's gone after some very good people, such as Rand Paul. Love Rand Paul, Ted Cruz. I'm fine with Lion Ted and Thomas Massie, who's a grandstander. I like Thomas Massie, but he's a big grandstander. And quits the name calling. You should do the same. No, I get nuance. So I'm going to call him names if I want to, and then I'm going to tell you all the great stuff he does. Ron DeSantis is absolutely the best governor in America, as far as I can tell. I wish he was my governor. He was a horrific presidential candidate. He did this thing where he hired all of these incredibly nasty grassroots influencers on Twitter. And all of these people were fighting these absurd battles online, torching people who are at the cutting edge of the America First movement, the people who are taking back our country from the woke left. And all of a sudden, all these strange influencers pop up with these nasty things that were just huge levels of division on the right online, all led by Ron DeSantis' team. It was the worst campaign I've ever seen, and I'm going to make fun of him for it. Guys, you use mockery and ridicule to get what you want. It's a tool. The left has used it. I'm going to deploy it in a strategic way. But the people who were part of Ron DeSantis' presidential campaign, you can't forget their tactics. You can forgive, but you can't forget how bad that campaign was. He waited way too late to get in. And then he got in and he ran the nastiest campaign I've ever seen with these online stuff, highly passive aggressive. DeSantis wasn't doing that himself. And Trump's nickname, Ron DeSanctimonious, Ron DeSanctus, I'm obsessed with it because it was the only nickname that Trump ever had where I didn't get it at first, and I love it in retrospect. He was sanctimonious, and he had no right to be sanctimonious. He wasn't that great. DeSantis has very limited skills. He is very good at moving the levers of power as governor of Florida, but he is not an able communicator. He is not personable. He's incredibly awkward. He's not likable in the slightest. So he's a terrific governor, and I think he would be a great president if he got elected. But he ran this horrible campaign, and it just is a mean, nasty campaign. And so I'm going to call him DeSantis if I feel like it. But thank you for your 2 cents, and I'm glad I got to share it on the air. But he's doing a great job as governor. I admire him as governor. The best governor. It doesn't mean that I have to like him as a guy. Do I have to? All right. We got exclusive story. Fires remorse. LA residents turn against Mayor Karen Bass in a poll, but not by enough. And I flagged this. Joel Polis got this for Breitbart. Bass is now underwater with her approval rating, but check this out. She's still got, according to Rasmussen, a 42% approval rating. 42% of Los Angelinos still think Karen Bass is okay, and this is very scary because this is the once-in-a-lifetime chance to get rid of some Democrats in LA. And if we blow it, then I will start coming around to all of you who think California is unsalvageable and unforgivable. So, 44% disapproval, 42% approval. It scares me for a number of reasons. Here's the main thing psychologically that I'm concerned about. I'm concerned that people are so wedded to the idea of the Democrat Party, a utopian vision where everything is going well and we need more socialism and we need more diversity and we need more abortions, and that's all that matters. And we will lower the crime rate simply by not keeping people in prison. And we will solve the homeless crisis simply by building tiny little homes on the property of the veterans of the VA. So, which is what they tried in LA. The stuff doesn't work. All we need is a needle exchange and all of our problems will be fixed. So those people who are going to have to part with that vision for the city, I'm nervous they won't. I'm nervous that they won't admit to themselves that what they've accepted as the truth for 30 years or 40 years or 50 years or 60 years, however old they are, is a bunch of lies and doesn't work. And so this is where I get nervous because now is the time where I want us to be persuasive and not mean, because I don't want people to feel like, you know what, I know it didn't work, but I just cannot picture myself going with other people. I can't picture myself going with Republicans. I can't picture myself going with rich cis hetero white guys. I like my BIPOC furry lesbians. I can't have any rich heterosexual whites in charge. And people are going to go with that approach, and then we're not going to solve any problems. It takes a lot to admit that this experiment with illegal aliens has failed. Illegal migrant suspected of arson in LA wildfires faced multiple encounters with law enforcement. We learned this in the last 24 hours. So this is Juan Manuel Sierra, who is detained by ICE as an arson suspect. Has multiple encounters. Law enforcement, not deported. Got to deport all of them. Deport them all. Got to get a lot of deportations going. The addendum to Bass doing better in the polls than I would like is that suggests that Newsom could get away with all this. He was absentee as well. And he showed up since the fires, and he's trying. He seems to be trying at this point. But his policies are horrible. He was a big Delta smelt guy. He was a big, we got to restore the salmon runs. He didn't do anything to clear out the brush. He didn't do anything to mitigate for potential fire. He didn't make sure that people were deployed for potential emergency the way Ron DeSanctimonious would have done if he was in charge. Folks, pay attention because this is as serious as it gets. Kamala Harris and Joe Biden are racing to lock in radical policies before Trump takes office on January the 20th. They're not just winding down. They're cementing their control. Biden's already signed Executive Order 14067, and banks are actively testing a government-controlled digital dollar right now. This isn't about modernizing currency. It's about total control. They want to track every dollar you earn, save, and spend. Every single one. And here's the kicker. Once the system's fully implemented, it'll be nearly impossible for Trump to undo it. The radical left and their global elite allies will have permanent grips on your financial life long after they're out of power. Trump's called this a dangerous threat to freedom, and J.D. Vance warns it can mean total government control over your finances. Folks, this is real and it's happening now, but you're not powerless. My friends at Priority Gold have created a wealth preservation guide to help you fight back. It lays out 3 critical steps to shield your savings from this overreach. All you have to do is text FREEDOM to 24999 right now and get your guide. That's FREEDOM to 24999 or visit PriorityGold.com. Don't wait. Text FREEDOM to 24999 today and shield what's yours. DeSantis would have saved a lot of lives if he was mayor of LA or governor of California. Absolutely would have. Still gets his nickname, though. Partially to troll some of you who like him so much. That's what I'm nervous about, is that the bad guys won't get held accountable. There's an LA Times story that blew my mind because, remember, Dr. Patrick Soon-Shiong, who owns the LA Times, billionaire, formerly a left-winger, now he's acting really based online, which is based as like the equivalent to woke, but on the good side. He's really conservative now. Ran a huge column in the LA Times. Los Angeles is a climate disaster. The fires will change nothing. Unbelievable. By a guy named Sammy Roth. Sammy Roth is a alum of Harvard Westlake School, which is where I went. Number 2 ranked high school in the entire country, where I matriculated. And we produced some of the dumbest individuals in the country, like Mayor Eric Garcetti, the prior mayor of Los Angeles, who failed the city and got shipped off to India. He's the ambassador to India currently. Not a factor in all this. Didn't get the city prepared. Part of the reason why the city's struggling. So columnist Sammy Roth, he opposed Rick Caruso for mayor vocally because he's a big environmental guy, because Rick Caruso did not have a plan for climate change. So he had no climate plan. Rick Caruso saved his luxury mall in the Palisades. And he could have saved the city, but we didn't elect them because of people like Sammy Roth in the LA Times. So we're told the LA Times, the guy's based now, and they're running these absurd columns. We got to be really diligent of the new MAGA. I've been warning about this. This includes Musk. This includes Zuckerberg. This includes Dr. Patrick Soon-Shiong. If they were not around in 2016, you need to give them some space. They're going to make mistakes. We saw it with the great Vivi Ramaswamy. He came out for H-1Bs. And he's gone now. Where's Vivi? Have we seen Vivi? Where's he been? He's gone. There was a report in Semaphore, which is run by Ben Smith, who is a left-wing fake news guy. So this might be fake, but reporting that Vivi is eyeing the governorship of Ohio. I thought Vivi was going to do the Doge with Elon. I thought he was going to clean up the federal government. But then he did the H-1B comment where he wants us to import Indian culture to replace American culture. So I broke down on the show. And I say this again with the same caveats as Ron DeSantis. I really like Vivek Ramaswamy. I want him to have a great career. I want him to be a regular on the show. I really enjoy his company. We've done events together. He's a great guy. I root for him. But he was terrible H-1B comments and he disappeared. And now the reports are he wants to run for governor. He doesn't want to do Doge. Maybe he does want to do Doge and use it as a stepping stone to run for governor. I don't get it. I don't know. I hope it's false. I'm going to have to ask him. I want him to go help Elon clean out the government. A lot of turmoil in the media space. Big one from today is the Pulitzer Prize winning cartoonist Darren Bell from the Washington Post arrested for child porn. And check out how creepy this is. AI child porn. Which I guess, I don't know, is that better than not AI child porn? I guess if no kids are harmed. Oh my God. What a disgusting world we're living in. To Prager's point, it's if you need more evidence that humans or humanity is not inherently good. This guy won a Pulitzer Prize and he does cartoons where he was really upset about Republicans' obsession with grooming. Conservatives obsessed with the idea of grooming, how, when we refer to the groomers at Disney at Breitbart, because they're trying to sexualize children with all the trans stuff, which of course all the trans stuff is grooming. It's a way of adding sexuality into people's lives when they're in the 3rd grade, stuff like that. It's getting them primed to be preyed upon by sick pervert freaks. So this guy won a Pulitzer for his cartoons. Darren Bell arrested for child porn, AI child porn, creepy stuff. Creepy, creepy, creepy. Yep. Very, very interesting that this is where the media is at. So we got to keep a close eye on them, keep a close eye on the new MAGA. I don't want to make the shows too long, so let me just mention some other stuff. I'm seeing emails. I'm getting a lot of medallion recommendations. I would, as an homage to Mark Zuckerberg and his Zuck 2.0, his new look. I think I'm going to have to do the T-shirt with the medallion just sometimes on the show. We might have Medallion Mondays. Okay, I think I'm inventing it right now. Medallion Mondays on the Alex Marlow Show. And a lot of you guys are making actually seriously nice recommendations. American flag sea medallions. Something called a St. Benedict's medal has been recommended to me. Keep the spirit of evil at bay. I would have to look into this. That sounds incredible. So there's a really cool one with the American flag one of you recommended with those cool chains, sort of chain link thing that's in there. 19 karat gold, is that even a thing? I like it. So I'm going to pick one, and we're going to have Medallion Mondays on the show. So this is why we got to support the advertisers, guys, so my medallion budget goes up. So a lot of intelligent emails coming in. Let me read a couple. Joanna from North Carolina comments, the Jennifer Rubin and Norm Eisen clip you shared yesterday reminded me of some of the deranged Scientology ads. Cringe. If you guys missed the show a couple of days ago, this is why we got a number of the shows. You guys have been calling for it. We're going to have to do it. I spent 10 minutes dunking on Jennifer Rubin's new endeavor called The Contrarian. Jennifer Rubin, famous for the number one soundbite in the history of the Alex Marlow Show, this one.
Republicans want to kill your kids.
Yeah, so she's got a new thing called The Contrarian, a new outlet. She left the Washington Post. Maybe she got wind that the guy was child sex trafficking or whatever was going on. Allegedly. We'll say allegedly, for the sake of the lawyers. So she's moved on. This guy, Norm Eisen, is one of the Hall of Famers in terms of lawfare. So she started this with this guy who was one of the architects of some of the worst lawfare against Trump. So we'll have a lot more Norm Eisen content this year. So it just reminded me of that. I wanted to bring that up because I wasn't familiar with Eisen, and I did some quick research, and he's one of the worst guys around. So but he's got a smiley face. And I've decided that if the Contrarian wants to make me a big enough offer, I will ask Salem out of my contract, and I will ask if we can move this to become a Contrarian podcast. So if any of you have any contacts over the Contrarian and you want to pitch them this show, let's do it. Let's see. Here's a fun one. Chris French. Aloha, Alex. Tim Kaine has nursing home hair. That is so right. That is so right. He looked completely like he had never heard of a comb. I played a clip of Tim Kaine questioning, I think it was Hegseth, and badgering Hegseth earlier in the week. Love that one. I've got a lot more clips from the confirmation. We didn't get to any today, but we will do a bunch tomorrow. I've got more Pam Bondi dunking on that pencil neck Adam Schiff. Rubio did great. So a lot more. We'll do a lot more tomorrow, but I want to keep these shows relatively brief, and this one's going about as long as I want to go. But I will close out on one thing. I'm so excited about this coming weekend because we are officially seeing the culture shift in this country from where the Hollywood left were the cool kids to now Trump's movement is cool. And I'm not talking about the United States. I'm talking about globally. This is a clip from South Korea. Check this out. This is a rally in South Korea. Everyone is singing the YMCA. They've got American flags, and these people can't wait for Trump. They know Kim Jong-un, who is a nuclear power. They've launched 6 nukes. It just came out. I wanted to get to this earlier in the week that we had a big report on Breitbart on the worst places to be a Christian on earth and the persecuted Christians globally. 400 million Christians persecuted globally, typically by Islamists and communists. Number one worst nation to be a Christian is North Korea. South Korea is kind of a mess right now. Have you guys been following the news? It kind of makes it to my second or third tier, so I haven't brought it up a lot on the show, but a lot of coups going on, a lot of upheaval within their government. But they were excited about Donald Trump, and they got the American flags out there, and they're singing YMCA, and it is delightful. All right. That'll be today's show. Thank you to producer Misty. Aloha at alexmarlowe.com. I'll dwell on the emails a little bit more coming up. We should have Senator Sheehy tomorrow. That's the plan. We'll get his take on the firefighting as well as the confirmation hearing. He's one of the stars coming up. Definitely got the eye of the tiger. Super impressive guy. So looking forward to that. And then we're heading towards inauguration. Good stuff. Great time to be in the news business and great time to be connecting with all of you. Tell 10,000 friends and family members about the show. And I can't thank you enough. Thanks for listening or watching.